This is Richard Talkett, voice of Jones County. On our table talk, we have 3 members of our board who are going to talk about law enforcement week.
Good morning.
I'm Marilyn Gray Onslow.
Carmen Jameson, Wyoming.
Zini Abraham of Anamosa.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about this particular week is National Law Enforcement Recognition Week. I think that's one section of our community and essential to our society that doesn't get a lot of recognition. I think everybody just takes it for granted, and I think that it's important that we do this. I know the president spoke yesterday to a group of policemen, and I don't know if we've done anything for our police or our sheriff or our deputies or anybody, but I got something here. Let me just show this little band right here. It says "Back the Blue," and it's for $5. You can get it at the sheriff's office, and the money goes toward the food and et cetera for our drug dogs. So stop up at the sheriff's office and get a $5 band and get the treats for the doggies or whatever. But anyway, and they're police officers as well. The dogs.
Yeah, they're official.
Yep, they are. They have a badge and everything, so it's important. But I don't know what all that's going on across the country. I think there's various places that are celebrating their police officers. I know yesterday was the recognition day for police officers who have lost their life in the line of duty. And so I think that's one reason why the flags were at half staff.
Since 1913, I think they've been
Was that it?
recognizing, heard that figure anyway. So.
That's nice.
It is nice.
It is nice. And
I didn't even know they ever did that.
I think it's important just to acknowledge the police officers. So many times we just pass them by as we're going, if you've got nothing to hide, why don't you just say hello? Yeah. They are human beings.
I wave to them.
Yeah, I do too.
Wave to them.
But I think it's a small town thing,
Yeah.
It'd be nice if more people, when you're in the city, like in Cedar Rapids, oftentimes you're in a situation where you're passing through police, whatever is going on for activities. I think it's nice to acknowledge, everyone, but especially those who are protecting us, and maybe even say, hey, thanks. Thanks for your service, for what you do for our community.
If I see them in a restaurant or something, I'll go over and tell them, thank you for what you do. They're really all that's between us and the bad guys. And, they do lay their lives on the line. They absolutely do. And I don't think we really realize how much they give up for, they're on call all the time. I mean, there's
I think they get a bad rap in the media.
I do.
The big scandals,
Not that they
make a lot of noise.
That there haven't been a scandal or two. I understand that, but
yes, indeed, there
don't
have.
put them all in one basket.
Right.
That's just not.
And I think that the way you get people to behave more humanely towards each other is to be humane yourself.
Yep.
And so let's set a good example of how to behave towards each other, because it only influences that kind of thing back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I view it.
I think that's a good point. Good point. We expect a lot out of them, and then a kick in the teeth. Besides, that's not a great way to do business. Actually, it probably is a business. So did you have anything else that you wanted to add about that, Marilyn?
Well, my only experience, I'll call it, is with the sheriff's department, and on city council, they usually come, and it's usually the sheriff himself, to our meetings. Just pops in the door, wants to know if we need anything, want to give him any information, any questions. And there'll be a whole sheet, though, of different events that they got called to our community.
Mm-hmm. And your community is one of, I know it may be a lot of places, but in Jones County, if you don't have a police department in your town, you can basically rent the sheriff's department. You pay so much a month to to have them come, and then they give this report at your city council meeting of what they've done in your town.
Oh,
And
That's Wyoming. Is
a
the
lot
same.
of times they're running with less people than they want and need.
absolutely.
Right now they're short,
They are short.
and they're working at trying to fill a couple big gaps in Jones County, and that's never easy to get that kind of thing taken care of, and then have good reserve people too, because somebody brought up the idea of using the reserves, and he said, well, that don't always work either. So
Yeah.
because if you think you're a reserve, you don't want to be full time.
That's true.
So-
That's very true. That's very true. It's a little bit like
And I think Greg and his crew, from anything I can see or hear, they deserve our regard and respect. And I'm not sure that always was true. And I'm glad to see that we have him.
I think he's very good at what he does. I know in the past we've had some discrepancies of
Questionable
things in sheriff's department, but I think we have a really good sheriff's department right now.
Yeah.
And that comes from strong leadership, and I think Greg's a good
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
I've been to Greg's house. He has a koi pond in his backyard. It's quite the setup. So anybody who's keeping fish is on my list. Right up there at
See,
the
now I'm a
top.
dog person. You're a fish person.
Oh, I have a dog too.
Oh, okay.
But outdoor ponds are kind of my thing. So,
They are beautiful.
and he
It's
taught me.
relaxing.
He actually taught me a lot about what I needed to know as I was setting up. So that's how I got to know him.
Mm-hmm.
His beautiful wife Dawn is a classmate of mine.
Oh, right. And she also is in law enforcement.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
I'm
and I
pretty
can't
sure how they
remember.
met.
It's the school resource officer in Monticello now. Is what is the?
Yeah,
I mean,
she
she's
is.
on the Monticello Police Department, but that's what she's doing, and that kind of leads into as a segue into another topic of the school shootings that have been going on. We have twin granddaughters in the Denver area. And so when the gal who was threatening to blow up or shoot or whatever she was going to do from the southeast and flew into Denver, we called Matthew, our son, to find out about it, and the girls didn't have school for a day or two because of this gal coming into the community, and they knew she was coming. And I don't know, good thing, bad thing, she committed suicide, so there wasn't another school shooting. But then in Highland Ranch, just on the south side, there was. So, and interesting enough, yesterday, the two kids that were charged in that shooting had their first court appearance, and that was the same day that they buried the young man who was basically a hero who
Saved the other people's lives by
He did.
putting himself in the
yes,
fire.
he did. Yep. He did.
And see, the whole scenario you were just talking about of the woman and probably the young men too.
Okay.
It brings up the whole thing about mental health and what poor resources we have to deal with them. Because if we dealt with them, and it drives me a little bit crazy. Maybe there's a good thinking behind it, but all the emphasis right now is early childhood mental health. Well, they grow up in a family of 2 adults, hopefully 2, maybe only 1, maybe 3, 5, I don't know, don't make much difference how many. So I hope that the new program deals a lot with who is parenting and grandparenting, because if they aren't doing that, it's a poor program.
Well, you just can't let somebody raise themselves.
No.
They've got to learn something somewhere along the line, and if they don't have an example. Of
Well,
something-
and even the learning isn't what I am even talking about. I'm talking about emotional care,
Yes.
healthy people, and they come from people who care and give a darn. And if you don't have that from the get-go, you have a lot of big problems.
The ACEs. I can't remember exactly what the ACEs stand for. I'm so sorry. But it is something about the the effect of the early childhood, and it's really amazing if you've ever seen a presentation or gone to a training session with the ACEs. I know you have, haven't you?
If they encounter these 10 things before they're 5 years old, they have a very hard road to hoe.
I think it's only three out of
the 10. Yeah.
If you have 3 out of 10, and it's things like divorce or separation, death, alcoholism or drugs. I can't think now what some of the other ones were either, but
I don't know either.
Pretty common things in our society anymore, you know?
Yeah.
I think we are dehumanizing people. I think that we don't know people, for one thing. We follow people who are friends of ours on social media, and we only see the stuff that they put out. We are not actually building real connections with people anymore. This is not real, this social media thing that we do. This is a representation of what people are like. This is not the same as connecting with people. And I think that our children are especially being affected. They don't play outside with kids like they should. You don't get put in your place on occasion when you deserve it because you got lippy to the big kid. You know what? We need to respect each other. This is the thing that we aren't doing in this society, is that we aren't learning how to work as community partners. This is you in your house. You don't meet the neighbors. You don't go outside.
That's right.
You know, you don't socially engage with people in a real meaningful way. People need to be getting out into nature and remembering why we need to take care of this world. And they need to be getting out and remembering why we need to love each other. And we aren't doing that. We are failing in a huge way. And we are seeing it in everything across our society that seems to be going wrong. Because we are not being the best human beings we can be.
Well, they're lonely in a crowd, you know, these young folks. We were talking about that actually just before you came, about people just being on their phone. They can't converse with each other, but they can talk to each other on these phones, but they're so inhuman.
Yes.
You know, because you can say things or they can't see your face.
Right.
Can't hear the inflection in your voice.
Right.
Furthermore, they can't write and they can't speak. You know, they can't carry on a conversation
With real full sentences. No.
It's all
Everything's emoji.
Yeah, there you go.
You can't speak emoji in real life. You really need to learn how to have a conversation. And you know what? Spelling is important.
It is.
If you don't want to sound
And
like an
English language
idiot.
is very difficult to spell because it's not always phonetically.
Yeah. Look at it as a challenge.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. We need some kind of basics that help kids. And you know, I thought it was just Iowa that had such a bad situation as far as healthcare goes. But it's really nationwide.
Oh, it's nationwide.
I mean, every
Terrible.
state we seem to have gone to has, in the headlines, has something about the health care, the mental health care that they're not getting. And
Well,
so,
wouldn't it be great if we didn't need the mental health care
wouldn't.
because we were growing, we were,
Helping
nurturing.
children from the get-go.
Yeah. And adults. If we just cared more for one another, a lot of mental illness is about the way you program your brain to think, and you let things carry you away. You let them foster, and you let them create a thing until your physical body changes in a way that you can't get rid of them anymore. Because you've trained yourself to be this thing. You've accepted this diagnosis. You've given this thing it's due, and it's holding on to you. Not all mental illness is like that, but we can stop a mental illness before it gets embedded too deeply. We can recognize those things if we even engage people enough to know that there's something wrong.
That's huge. And I'll just put a little plug in. The Jones County Safe and Healthy Youth Coalition will be having youth mental health and an adult mental health training. Again, this is similar to what you went to. coming up in June and July, I believe, are the dates, and I'll get that out to Scott so that he can put that on the website.
I've taken both the youth one and this adult one,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and they're very worthwhile.
Yeah.
And
It's how to really recognize red flags, or this could potentially be an issue that we need. So we need to watch this particular thing, and it's one way that we can help each other. So,
yep.
So along with mental health, I guess we can segue into the big decision that was done in Alabama yesterday with the abortion issue. She signed it into law last evening, the governor of Alabama. I was surprised. Iowa had the fetal heartbeat law, and it was struck down in the Supreme Court. And so, but they aren't the only one. There's several states that have that or are trying to do that. And so I guess I could ask opinion. Do either of you have anything you'd like to say about that? We have a few minutes.
I'll tell you, I read a book recently, read most of it. The title is When Abortion Was Illegal. And it tells you a lot. And I've heard this before. I think maybe in a magazine that my mom had hidden under some bedding in the linen closet. But it was all about how many abortions. Well, the book, let's start with the book. The book was about how many abortions were botched or let's leave the word, I guess, botched.
Endangered the woman's life.
In Chicago back in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't have to read that very far. It was like, okay, if we make it illegal, we're going to be right back there, because a lot of people are going to self-abort if they can do it. And it's like, if you want to prevent them from killing themselves besides, then there's got to be a better answer. And I'm I think in the camp that you are. I don't want an abortion for anybody, but yet on the other hand, I think you got to have the right to have one if you think that's the only answer to your life situations. And, how are we to judge that one? And
but we aren't to judge. Here's the thing.
Oh, yeah, I know we're not.
If you come from a Christian background, the child who is aborted is free of sin.
Mm-hmm.
So their soul goes straight to heaven. And if the goal is to get your soul to heaven, boom, they're there. So it's sad that a life ends, but the woman then, if you feel that that's a sin, has her life to repent. So, and she probably will the rest of her life repent that had to happen. It's a sad thing to take a life. So I have a hard time understanding why Christians are so up in arms about abortion when the woman's life is being saved, and we're not creating another soul that has to be tortured or whatever might happen. Their soul's going straight to heaven, and the woman has an opportunity to repent because she doesn't have to do an illegal abortion. So that's kind of my point of view, is I can't understand why the Christians are so, you're going to hell if you have an abortion. Well, there is repentance in the Christian faith. So let's give the woman the opportunity, right? That's kind of my thing. Having said that, I don't think we should take life ever. Mm-hmm. I don't even eat meat because I have a hard time taking an animal's life. So anyone who can easily just take a human's life, I have a hard time understanding that as well. Mm-hmm. So quite frankly, across the board, there's all kinds of things that don't make sense about abortion. What does make sense is for a man to control where his seed goes. This is where the responsibility lies, and this is where we are not focusing our attention in this community, in the world. Men need to control what children they create. This is a serious responsibility. Women can also have the responsibility, and they should. But we really need to stand up and be responsible human beings and not just make babies.
Well, I don't think abortion should be used as a form of birth control. I just don't believe that. And folks talk about the children who are brought into the world then under those circumstances, and they're not loved, or there's not enough food in the house, or whatever the problem is.
So a suffering soul.
But I don't believe God makes mistakes. So that leaves me in the camp where I'm not even in favor of it, only in incest, or if there's a definite threat to the mother. She's got 3 other little ones, and this is going to maybe terminate her life, and that I see it that way. And there are situations, having worked at the university, I know there are situations when the child is so deformed and is not going to be viable, and to even carry that child is detrimental. And so I know that it has happened, and I can see that. But I'm sad that we have to have a law. I think that we should have a conscience. Should you, let me see, should I get rid of this, Back in the day, it was just to save face, because you didn't want anybody to know that you'd had a child or whatever, but that was no excuse either. That was real close to coat hanger days.
Mm-hmm.
Real close to coat hanger days. So what do you think? Do you think this is going to pressure the Roe v. Wade thing like they think it's going to?
Huge. I bet it will. I think so. I got to bring in this one other topic, and I cannot think of this guy's name. He was the author of a bunch of good books and a tape and different tapes and stuff that I have. And right now I can't think of his name, but anyway, in the concept of destroying a life, he said wheat is a living thing too.
It's true.
Absolutely.
Everything is a living thing if you think about
Yep.
it. It's this wide. So it's like some things have to give. He said, and this is his theory, and I kind of go with it. Some things have to give their life up for something else, and it's kind of like this, continuum.
Mm-hmm.
And to call a sperm and an egg a life, that a child, that's the part that gets it might be a life, but is it a child? Come on, I'm not sure that's even accurate. And you can call it anything you want, I guess, but there's a lot of thin lines and everything isn't just black and white, and there's a lot to be looked into. And I think she was a professional maternity person of some variety on the radio here recently, and she was talking very in her language, of her business. And I thought, man, there's where we should be looking and listening, and get that kind of point of view in there too, in the mix of information, because it might just make some difference. It's not all black and white. It's not all cut and dried kind of stuff. It really isn't.
Well, you're absolutely correct with that. Everything is it's a living world, everything we have. But I believe God created, and therefore, and He gave man His most precious creation, dominion. And that's dominion over the wheat. That's dominion over the cattle. It's dominion over whatever. But He said clearly, "Thou shalt not kill." And I think that when that egg and sperm come together, that does form a life. That is a life. It might not be a viable life, which is where the argument comes with the abortion of when to have it. If it can't live outside the womb on its own, no baby. I don't care if it's full term, if it's overdue, can't live on the outside on its own without a mother to nurture it.
Mm-hmm.
So you still got to have that in there. So, so we're getting the high sign that we're just about done for the day.
I have heard that an Orthodox Jewish man told me that the Jews don't see the life start until birth. So up until birth, that's not really considered a life in the Jewish faith. And I thought, that's really interesting,
How do you describe that movement that you feel?
Well, they just don't view it as spiritual life, I guess, It's still the mother. It's still one life with the mother. So I do not feel that we can regulate more than we already do abortion. Right, yeah. And I think that any state that tries to say that's illegal here is really just making life hard for themselves. I mean, the problem is, we had discussed this too, it's the poor that are going to suffer the most from this kind of thing. And how does a state benefit by having more poor folks having more poor babies? So the logic behind that thinking just doesn't make sense to me either.
Well, for next time, perhaps we can discuss on when are you too old? When is it time to say, you're no longer viable to
adult
society? That's the same spectrum that we're talking about, the beginning of it and the end of it. So we don't have a next time exactly lined up, but maybe we'll talk about that. So our time is up, and
segue right into it next time.
All have a good day.
Thank you.